Hi, this is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I am the ambassador for Heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and dark angels over life. Dear Heavenly Father, Mother, I pray that you help lead what comes out of this mouth. I'm going to start this right off the bat and say to the Russians that it's time for me to ask for religious asylum. I have been persecuted in the United States nonstop. It began in 2011 when I opened up my case. It went to G4S, it went to the state of Florida. I have been cyber stalked and cyber monitored in the most humiliating ways. They send people into my life to attack. They send people into my life to throw me off. The last time I had someone put into my life was this past June. And after I reached out to Palm Beach County to put in a case in March, it was one attack after another by the LGBTQ. So I've reached a point of time that although I reached out and tried to support President Trump, for whatever reason, he has not been able to reach out and reciprocate. And I was instrumental in helping to get him elected. It isn't that I thought I wanted him. I knew that there was something going on with the Zionists, because I could see that Hillary Clinton's daughter had to marry a Jewish man whose father was in jail, and the same thing happened to Clinton's daughter, and they all did it within a year of each other. I caught that immediately as soon as I looked up the daughters and the husbands. And now I know that there's a very strong, and I knew that I represented the Magdala and the Artemis. I've known this for a long time. I've realized my links to St. Paul way back into 1996, and Micah is absolutely clear, as is Revelation. I have been hounded. I have been abused. I have been violated. And they work very hard to set me up to watch me fall. And they've been doing this now since 2011. But my documentation, I will, if I get the case out to Palm Beach County, I will, Russia, I let you know that I knew it wasn't you. And I'm pretty sure it was Sarah Lampton. A few days ago, when I put things out there regarding the threats that have been going on and the shootings, I said, I know that it has to do with the LGBTQ, and I know that the one in Christchurch was related to the LGBTQ, and I knew that the pipe bombs was part of the LGBTQ, as well as what went down at the gay nightclub. And I knew that. When I knew it, I saw it, I knew that there was something really amiss, and now I understand it fully. And Barack Obama was a part of it, but it was the LGBTQ. But for a long time now, Russia, because you have not allowed for gay marriage and you're not a fan of transgenderism, they have gone after you. And I can't get it done here. I wanted to help move us into the Union of North America. I've been trying to do this openly since 2001. Then I tried to open it up so that Australia could come into Canada and we could free up that area for China, so that China wasn't plowing through the rest of the world and in Africa, so that China had a place to be. I told Russia that I knew, and I told the Germans that I knew, I told the Mexicans that I knew that the United States was the Satan. And there are other Americans who know it as well. I mean, it's not like I'm alone here. But I knew that the red dragon, when I thought it was going to be China, and I found out that it was England. And then I even said, with what was going on in England, that I guess then they could join with us up here, and we could have a particular Anglophone area. But you know something? The Zionists and I'm going to say the Jews, but not all Jews. That's why it's important to say the Zionists. And the LGBTQ and Barack Obama, it didn't work for them. Now, I've made it clear there was a pattern that I caught that I was a part of, and this is preceding another video where I'm talking about where God is hitting you and punishing you, and that I'm bigger than Moses. I've made it clear to the United States that they cannot go up into space because they do nothing but pollute and destroy. And that's what they do. I understand that both Russia and China understands that the United States and the Zionists have extremely aggressive and debilitating agendas for the rest of the world. I get that. And right after I said that I saw that Jeffrey Epstein had a Phoenician temple, sex, occult kind of thing going on, and I linked up Monica Lewinsky with Sarah Latham being with Clinton at the same time and how she held on to her dress, and I said, well, wait a minute, was this part of the Zionist as well? That's when it was released online that Netanyahu had said many years ago, offered Clinton to listen to the Monica Lewinsky tapings that he had made. And then a picture of Clinton came out with Monica Lewinsky's dress on. I can't get anything done here. It's just one thing after another. I can't breathe. And not only that, 2010 is here. We have horrific upheaval that's going on. Like we did in 2000, not 2010, this is 2019. 2019 is a 3-year. 2010 was a 3-year. We have these upheavals going on. The earthquakes and the major catastrophes are about to happen. I worked very hard to try to protect people. I have been telling about the wars in Jupiter and Leo since 2001. We can't get the deals done here. That's it. We just can't get it done here. So I'm asking for asylum. I'm asking to be able to speak with Ishmael's children and remind them, bring them back and remind them that Ishmael had only one wife because he understood the difficulty that Hagar had, and Isaac had only one wife because he understood the difficulties that Sarah had, and that the problems have always been Abraham and his Ammonite background and the Phoenicians. This is different than the Arabs, and I'm asking them to leave that Abraham. I'm asking them to do that. And I'm asking Russia, China, Europe will not comply. Our Middle Eastern countries that are partaking in the Olympics, I'm asking them to help me set up an international Olympic game just for biological women. Games just for biological women. Because men's brains develop differently, and it begins in utero. They have more neurons that go up to areas of their brain that deal with muscles and coordination and eye-hand coordination, and they do. And they have less neurons that are developed in the frontal lobes and the prefrontal lobes. Men have a much stronger reptilian brain. And I've already said that they have a little less DNA because the Y chromosome has less DNA, and they are in fact the negative sign, which is, I've already gotten into that. That needs to change. Well, we can't change that, but we can improve things. But men have that. They have that advantage. And that it doesn't go away just with hormones. And they have it even after once you go through even early puberty, you always have that advantage. And their hearts are always bigger than women's. And so their hearts are bigger than women's. Their muscles and their bone mass, all of those things is bigger than women's. They have more of that coordinated effort. They have greater oxygen volume and the ability of their lungs. The whole thing is more, and it doesn't go away just because they say they're a transgender. When we realize what's happening, and the Western world these people are sociopaths and psychopaths. Some of them are just lost, but some of these people are sociopaths and psychopaths. And I need to discuss frankly. Please help me so that I can discuss frankly what these differences are. I'm going to show you a video in a moment so that we can look after it. So Russia, you're being hit by the LGBTQ, and a few days ago there was this man with the New York Post who released an article that said that the massacre person for Christchurch had emailed somebody in Russia and said blah 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 blah, and I thought that was their call for action. I thought to myself, that was an LGBT call for action. I'm going to tell the world again, folks, that man in Christchurch took a vacation in Pakistan. That's a terrorist. And he traveled to these areas. If he was against Muslims, he wouldn't have gone to Pakistan on a vacation. Why would he go to Pakistan? To hook up with suppressed LGBT people, or to go someplace else and work with LGBT people. But they are trying to topple Russia because Russia, it's like Clinton. They went after Clinton because he had the protection for marriage. They said it could only happen between a man or a woman. So they, everybody set him up. Anyway, that's why I said President Clinton needs to be able to talk. And Russia, I would like to put myself in Syria. This has got to stop for them. I would like to have the Baha'is and the Sikhs work with me in terms of counseling. What this government is doing, and Micah tells you what they're going to do, and Nostradamus tells you the kinds of things they're doing. The book of Micah. I am so traumatized. And you already know what they can do. But Trump seems to treat everything like it's a big joke. And he's not a conservative. He is a liberal. He is sexually liberal. And he's also fiscally liberal. He's a libertine. I'm a fiscal conservative, but he's not. In all of his discussions of everything, and I speak to China about this, in no place is he talking about opening up funding to clean up the earth and to make those monies available. None of that's being discussed at all. So before I go on to some of these other things, concerning Australia. And, you know, a while ago, even last year, I thought that it would be good if Greenland would be a part of North America, because I knew things were shifting. And I thought if we bring enough people over, it would be an incentive for this to happen. But the deal didn't happen. And so China still needs land. India still needs water. I wanted to get India, I said to myself a few weeks ago, I need to get India into the Gulf to help look after what's happening with the Gulf states and get a more neutral third party in. And that's when they antagonize things between Pakistan and India. So no matter what I do, no matter what you do, no matter what anybody who's good tries to do, these parties are constantly tearing it apart. And you know what they say about a prophet? You know, nobody's going to help you in your own homeland. They didn't do it in Canada. They're not going to do it here. That's it. It can't be done. I would like to be able to help Mexico, Central and South America, but I think we need to do this from a distance. 2020 is almost upon us. It's another 4-year like 2010. The catastrophes could be stupendous. And at this point, Florida should not be protected anymore. Neither should the United States. And that means I really need to go someplace else. The Bible makes it clear that country that supports the false Jews, that's all part of the false Jews network. They're really Ammonites, Moabites. They pollute through Balaam. They are, of course, I'm fighting the Nicolaitans, which is why they go after the Artemis. And then Trump and NASA turn around and say, okay, now Artemis is the moon. No, Artemis isn't the moon. Artemis is Jupiter. It's more feminine. I mean, Jupiter has all the attributes of femininity. Artemis is up in Sagittarius. Artemis is the galactic axis. The fact that the Greeks made her so small, it's because they were misogynistic and homosexual and blind. But Pythagoras didn't. I think we have to look at a different part of the world solving the problem. And unfortunately, the fall of Babylon, which is us, they're not looking at being a solution. They're looking at being a problem. I will try to reach out to Mrs. Warren. I don't know how much leeway President Trump has, but I do know that he has allowed them to send these people physically into my path. And the CIA and the FBI allowed for all of this. The news, Mr. Putin, is so bad, as you know, in this country, and I understand that it may not be perfect in yours, but we are in the middle here of complete falseness. There's nothing real. And Mr. Trump is not real with his intentions with the Zionists. And I don't know how much leeway Mr. Trump has. So by coming to you, I might actually be helping Mr. Trump. And I might actually be helping the people who call themselves Jews here, who wouldn't be doing what they're doing if they knew the other alternatives and that they don't have the land deal because of various things. They might very well be acting very differently. But nobody is allowing this to happen. Let's for a minute talk about, now move on to something. White nationalism. Why in heaven's name would white nationalists be reaching out like this? Why would they be offering to kill anybody and doing this? This isn't a white nationalist problem. This is an LGBTQ And these are, and you can go in and you can look at some of these. You can see it. You can look at the all calls. And it's a game. Now, I warned some of you, and I started in June. I said, I put it in writing and I have it online. Both the Bible, Isaiah, and Micah, and then in Revelations tell you, as well as the Hindus, that towards the end times, and it's the end of the age of men, not the end of humanity, but the end of the age of men, they tell you that the dead come back. And in fact, all of these occultists, including these Ammonite, Moabite people that call themselves Israel, that aren't Israel, and I've made it clear, Israel means hand, arm, Sarah, God. That was the archangel who was then incarnate into Jesus. And he didn't spend his time in Jerusalem. I mean, he just went there basically to die. Jerusalem is wicked. Even some of the prophets will tell you Jerusalem is just a really wicked, evil place. So is Rome. And I would say it's more wicked and more evil than Cairo. And it is. Because their intention is for domination and world and global control. And that's more wicked. The white nationalists are not this stupid. Let's go in here and begin to take a peek. I'm not quite sure where I left off there, but I just wanted to say that in terms of that person here, and I need to get in terms of pornography. If we look at him, and I guess I didn't turn it back on. Catch me if I did. Let's see if we did. Let's do this. As it turns out, and the irony behind this whole thing is that he goes on to say that he realizes how privileged men are in life and how demeaning they are to women. This is a transgender man, a man to woman, who went out and was a pastor for years and then lost a lot of his jobs and things like that. He said he's in a very weird position. So anyway, he's doing that. But what's the irony of this whole thing is that he goes and he says, you know, once I began transitioning, and he talks about the hormonal differences. He said, I always felt more like a woman. You know, I thought that even as a young person. Right, well, there were parts of me that felt like a man as well. But I know I'm not. Okay, I know I'm not. But here's the irony of him. He goes on, and I say him because he goes on to say how he's had to apologize to his wife for his insensitivity, because now that he's not getting his male hormones and he's getting female hormones for several years now, his sexuality is far more generalized and encompassing. His orgasm, and he realizes how he objectified his wife so in terms of sexuality. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of jackasses. I mean, we have to say this. And I'm saying this so that the school district gets it. He's already said that he was a man and he experienced his sexuality as a man. In terms of transgender, let's treat this one as the woman who goes to a man and treats this one as a man. Right? The woman who goes to a man gets a slight increase in terms of maybe going into the brain, and gets more of a male turn on in terms of some muscles and sexuality. We'll do more of that objectification. And it goes into the reptilian brain more. The male hormones, testosterone is the most dangerous chemical in the world. But if we look at the man to the woman, his heart will always be bigger than even the woman to the man. So the man to the woman, even after he transitions, his heart is bigger. He has more neurons that goes up to his brain for things like athletic, eye, hand, those kinds of things. All right? All of that, greater blood volume, I guess that whole mix is going on. He still has a greater ability for building muscle mass. All of that, all of it his is still greater. The woman to the man will never catch up, which is why women to men will never go out and win the Olympics or decide to take on Wimbledon. So the Russians have gotten into all kinds of trouble for the Williams statement. Well, I've seen pictures of Williams, and he's absolutely a man. You know, and that bit of that pregnancy, that's so photoshopped, and that lumpy belly and all kinds of things. I've seen Williams without the boobs on. I mean, there are pictures of her. I've seen Williams with marks in the legs where the shots are done. I mean, I've seen Williams in all kinds of ways, shapes, or form. I've seen this Gaff now, Coco Gaff, and I saw a picture, 13 years old, jumping up in Palm Beach County. I think I already have it online with the Delray Beach Girls Tennis League. Definitely a boy. That's definitely a boy. And I worked with his grandmother, Odom. Yeah. But what's even interesting is that the parents are able to brainwash these kids early on. But that's the kind of hatred. And you want to know something? There are so many African American women and so many African women that are winning sports events left and right. Why do we have to have men? So I'm going to ask again that the Russians and others help me to establish as Artemis of Ephesus. See, this is very different than the American Artemis program. That's about them taking control of space. No, that's not what Artemis of Ephesus is about. Artemis of Ephesus is about protecting life and protecting existence, not about you having a colony and gaining control in space. This is, Dumbo. Oh, really? So I can't get this done in the United States. I have to reach out to Russia. Russia doesn't allow these things to happen. China doesn't allow these things to happen. We need help. Maybe the Iranians would help. Maybe the Turkish would help. Maybe these other people would help us build an athletic event that allows for biological women and allows me to teach what these differences are, to hold both sexes up. I can't get it done here. And I certainly can't teach in a school. I mean, they put a transgender in front of me twice, the same person, twice in two different schools. They had that person chase me to a second school. The LGBT knew exactly what they were doing with me. It was terrible. I mean, I've been hit by LGBT time after time after time again. They've got, oh, I have it online. These are real people. This is not some figment of my imagination. They are too many of these men, not the women so much, but the men are terrorists. So that whole white supremacist thing, that's not really about white supremacy. That's a terrorism. That's them. They are the one that are the anarchist. I recently read about those obelisks that there used to be the Bim Bim bird. We're going to go in and take a look at it. Anyway, the Bim Bim bird has to do with when it's time to die. That was before they had the phoenix. But their belief system is that eventually everything in their belief system falls into chaos and will be absorbed into a unified chaos system. They're chaos theorists. I'm not a chaos theorist. I represent the creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over life. I'm not a chaos theorist. I do string theory in the musica. I'm not a chaos theorist. And that is what we have. I don't want to call them Israel. You know, that place, all right, which some of the prophets say needs to be razed to the ground before you can do anything with them. I tried. Guys, I tried. And then it has to be turned, I don't know, what are we going to call it? Hippozatic? I mean, because they lie even about their alphabet. By the way, the edition of the Bible that I work off of for the most part is Scripture for All. And that's the Leningrad Codice or the Codex. That is the most inclusive Hebrew Bible. 1,000 years old, but it was done by the Sephardic, I guess the Sephardic Jews. Anyway, I've already talked about that before. We need to talk about pornography. So we're getting into that. When I talked about, and I supported President Trump when he said, because I myself said that the video games exacerbate this violence. And they're saying, oh no, it isn't the video games. And you've got these crazy psychologists. Oh my God. That's the one thing my case ever tells you is that 90% of the psychologists and the psychiatrists are completely out to lunch, and whatever trend is going on is all working. In fact, one of the videos we saw next to Miss Williams, the transgender, was the pornography experiment. The pornography experiment happened, I'll give you the astrology sometime. But it happened when men finally figured out that women really had something to do with reproduction, and they decided to marginalize them even more. Hugh Hefner was just the beginning, but pornography's been around for a long time. And basically, all male-dominated societies and all male societies that have a chief male god have things like temple sex and the exploitation of women and pornography. When you have a female-dominated society, it seems to be far more ecologically minded, and you don't have that kind of thing going on with women. That's the reality. And in the Bible, it starts out with Genesis 2, and it says, and he cleaves to her. That's matrilocal. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole different story. Here we go. So, I've already agreed. I've already said in terms of the shooting, you take a person who has a few problems, and some of the boys we're looking at, the young men who did that shooting, you can see that they had psychological problems right off the bat. You can see it in their face. And now the others that we're looking at, it's like a big joke. I'm going to see if we can find this. Some of them are smiling. One of them that says that he was going to destroy one of the Jewish places actually looks Jewish, even though he gave himself an Irish last name. This is all their call to arms. These are our anarchists. But cognition follows behavior. You put those pathways in, you do the reinforcements, they're wearing the 3Ds, they're interacting, their social group is playing these games, doing these things, shooting these things, not having repercussions. Some of them are graphically disgusting. They're being reinforced with their friends. It's so sick. It is so very sick. And we don't have to feel so badly about the kids being back and hammering them, because remember, they've been around before. The Hindus and all of them will tell you, these kids have been here before. Now they have to hear the truth. Pornography. In the United States, it is ghastly and horrific. And now we have women engaging in it more, men do it more, but women are engaging in it more. With men, it has been their cultural right. Jesus Christ never told you that. There you go. Told you were wrong. Told you that it could keep you from heaven. Pornography develops narcissism. Period. And what you're viewing and how you up it. Think of alcoholism and drug addiction. Can you go around and drink after you have gone through your STEP program? Can a recovering alcoholic drink without falling back into it? It's unusual. The same is true with a drug addict. When men do pornography, I've been dating, I can't date anymore. They are so disgusting on the first sex. Not sex, first date, excuse me. They want sex on the first date. By the second date, they grope. You try to have coffee, they're moving you into another direction, and they're touching you and groping you at the same time. It's horrible. It's just horrible. It's just horrible. It's so horrible. And it's pornography. And you never recover. This is a huge problem. So we have societies of now boys that are developing their brains and girls that are completely developing their brains in very, very, very sick pornography. And we have adult men who have no social skills. They can't dance, they can't do anything. They can barely carry on a conversation. And their idea of what you owe them, they are so narcissistic because pornography develops narcissism. So there's no way around it, and they don't recover. There's this sense that if you stop, you recover. You never recover. You're never safe for women. I'm speaking of Artemis of Ephesus, Artemis, the real one, not some phony baloney who's going to take you to the moon, the real one, not some phony baloney that's going to allow the world to pound these waves on top of the earth and destroy you. No, the real one that's trying to protect you, not a business deal, the real one, the hubbub. You've destroyed your ability to have real meaningful relationships. And you've just created an entire atmosphere of narcissism. And we can't do anything about it because now it's you. And like that alcoholic, you can say, okay, I'm giving up pornography. But as soon as you engage in sex, just like that alcoholic, everything comes flooding back. And it's just a matter of time before you're back into the whole thing. And how you are asking, and then all of a sudden you're expecting anal sex, and you're expecting this, and you're expecting that, and you're unhappy with your partner because she doesn't look this way, and she isn't doing that to you. And there's like no way around it. She cannot possibly win with you. And that is the reality. It is. It's destroyed women. I don't really care what it does to the men because you had all the power and you did it because you wanted to, and you didn't care if you hurt women and children. It was your right. So I'm telling you, the women and the children, women in North America, I wanted to bring Chinese men over because, my God, they don't grow up in pornography. Our own men are so toxic, we shouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. It's incredible, and they can't do anything. They can't go on a picnic. Most of them can't go on a bike ride. I say to them, you want to go out dancing? I'll go out dancing with you maybe if we have sex. Really, those are the answers I get. Uh-huh. That's okay, we won't then. Okay? Then we won't. Bye. I need asylum for religious purposes so that I can go on and do these other things that I need to do as a religious movement. Now, regarding what the Messiah is the Maleka Masha, which is actually a feminine noun. It ends as a feminine noun. And the Maleka means queen, queen anointed. How do you do? That is supposed to be the Miguel, the woman of faith, who's been here before, who brings back Hobbit. But I've got to tell you, folks, that place, Jesus isn't there anymore. He's not Israel anymore. There is no Israel anymore. Israel became Jesus. Jesus is in heaven. Jesus sends us his Holy Spirit. The Israel is about Jesus' Holy Spirit. And his Holy Spirit, like the original places of worship, moves and is all over the place. It's no longer located on that plot of land. And honestly, from the Vatican's point of view, I got the deal for North America, and the chief center of the Christian church of all Catholic movement, because we're going to leave the Vatican and how it belongs. The Artemis of Ephesus went to Spain and then over to Mexico City. It needs to be there. It can't be in that awful city full of homosexual men who worship big red, throbbing granite penises. And are looking, literally, I've read, they're looking for Orisis and Horus to come back. They're not even looking for Jesus. That was an eye-opener that I saw last month, that I made a screenshot of. Who is and where is the Messiah supposed to come out of? And according to Isaiah 11, David, it does not come from David. That is a later Second Temple reading. It's not coming from David. Isaiah says it has to come from Jesse's. Revelation 22 says that as well. Revelation 22, it's when he says, I am, and at the end he says, we translated it as, I am the root and offspring of David, the early morning one, or the early shining one. That's not what it says. In Hebrew it says, I am the root and kin of David, the early morning shining one. The name that was given to me by God, one of the names back in 2001, was Isabel. That's the early morning. Yeah. What it really says in Isaiah 11 is that the one who comes to save is not about Joseph and has nothing to do with David. The one who comes to save will be a righteous root of Jesse's. David was not good enough. David failed. David committed too many sins. David gave up his wife that could have given him the king, and she's Micah. David was unfair. David did too many evil things. And that is why, along with Abraham, this group of people keep moving all over the place, because they do too many evil things. And they entrap. Richard Nixon warned us. We're not being anti-Semitic. We are protecting ourselves. We are calling it, if you are setting us up because you make money and you want to see us fall, and you're entrapping us, then it's okay to say, this is what happens, and we're going to protect ourselves. And as the person who is reaching out for Sarah and for the Hava, I have not just the right, but the responsibility, because biblically, Micah and Isaiah are telling you that it's not about David, it's not about Solomon. They were bad, wicked, evil people. Solomon enslaved most of his population and made all of the Israelis fight for him, and then he gave the northern territories to the king of Tyre, and the only queen he had was an Ammonite, and then we have Ammon, and that is one of the Israeli military intelligence sections, and why they all say Amen. Don't say Amen anymore. I'm really working on never saying Amen again, because Amen is about Haman, and this is just, it's not Yahweh, and it's not Hava, and it's, no. And Eretz Israel is actually Hurrian. So they're busy stealing from the Hurrians and the Hattis and the Matinis all over the place. Jesse's, there needs to be a righteous root coming from Jesse, because David was not good enough. Boop. Boop. Didn't work. They got Uzziah, they got Hezekiah, they got a second temple. You're not getting a third one. Don't support them, don't send any money, don't send them your prayers. Simply say to God, help them to learn their lessons. That's it. Do not support them. That's it. Don't support them. Now, where that's going to leave Islam, you really need to think about that. Okay. Well, I think that's all I'm going to discuss for today. Thank you. God bless. God is blessed. Let's see if I can turn myself.